And the details tonight. Minister of Defense is assured that the Ministry of Defense will protect any officer on lawful duty. Mohammed Baduru's remarks follows an altercation between a naval officer and Minister of the FCT over access to a parcel of land allegedly belonging to a former Chief of Naval Staff. Stephanie Sen has more.
It's a ceremony marking the formal commencement of activities to mark the 2026 Armed Forces and Remembrance Day.
To launch today,
the Minister of Defense highlights activities of the Armed Forces and events lined up for the occasion.
Nigerians can now write tributes to fallen heroes and say thank you for all their efforts in keeping the nation safe. They can also thank serving officers who they see have distinguished themselves in the service of the nation. The link to the electronic world will be published through all our social media handles for easy access.
But the focus soon shifts to a recent altercation between a naval officer and Minister of the FCT Nyesom Wike over access to a parcel of property allegedly belonging to a former Chief of Naval Staff.
I'm not a fool, sir. I'm not a fool. I am not a fool, sir.
Well, at the ministry and indeed the armed forces, I will always protect officers on local duty. So we are looking into the question and be rest assured if any officer on local duty be protected. I will not have anything to happen to local duty, doing his job, and doing his job credibly well.
The incident continues to generate reactions, pitting analysts who are for and against the parties involved in the matter. Sifon Asian, TVC News, Abuja.
President Bola Tinubu has encouraged Nigerian editors to use their platforms to promote national unity and strengthen democracy through responsible journalism. He made the call at the 2025 annual conference of the Nigerian Guild of Editors held at the State House in Abuja.
The conference was themed Democratic Governance and National Cohesion, the role of editors. The event brought together key figures in government and the media to chart a new course for national dialogue and press freedom.
As editors and managers of the national information space, you shape narratives, you influence public understanding, you decide what becomes national focus and how our collective challenges are interpreted. The weight of that responsibility is extremely significant. It must be exercised with wisdom, fairness, and a strong sense of national duty.
President Tinubu admitted that Nigeria faces economic challenges, but said ongoing reforms are necessary to secure long-term stability and prosperity. He reaffirmed his administration's commitment to cooperation, trust, and shared understanding in nation building.
The reform we have undertaken have been challenging, but they are designed to place our economy on a strong and enduring footing.
The Minister of Information and National Orientation, Mohammed Idris, said the President's presence at the Editors' Conference demonstrates his respect for press freedom and commitment to partnership with the media.
As we deliberate here today, I charge you, my colleagues, to see yourselves as essential partners in national renewal. The government of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has demonstrated its faith in you through his actions, not just his words.
The president of the Nigerian Guild of Editors urged the administration to provide corporate relief through tax exemptions and incentives that will enable the media to survive the high cost of news production.
At the end of the day, Your Excellency, your government has been working so hard to provide jobs for the people. If the media cannot keep jobs by paying people their salary. They cannot help our democracy. So that's why we are happy you are here, Your Excellency.
If you have a role to play in democratic governance and national cohesion, then you also have a role to play in electoral integrity and trust deficit. Because without electoral integrity, there can be no democracy.
As the conference continues, the central message from both government and the media remains clear. Democracy thrives best where truth, accountability, and national interest guide public conversation. Femi Akonde, TVC News, Abuja.
And now to the National Assembly, where the Senate has dismissed reports of an alleged plot to impeach the President of the Senate, Godswill Akpabio. At today's plenary, the Senate leader made it clear that no such move exists, insisting that the 10th Senate remains united and focused on national priorities. The clarification follows earlier comments by Senator Orji Uzor Kalu, who told journalists that some lawmakers had discussed the possibility of removing the President of the Senate. The Senate leadership maintains the chamber has zero tolerance for distractions that could undermine its legislative duties.
From my discussions with Senator Orji Uzor Kalu, it was obvious to me that it was quoted out of context. And the reason I'm standing up to make this clarification is that there was no attempt by any of our colleagues here. There was, in fact, no discussion around the possibility or otherwise of the removal of His Excellency, Distinguished Senator Godswill Akpabio as President of the Senate. And we are not taking this misinformation for granted.
Meanwhile, the Senate also approved President Bola Tinubu's request to establish a 1.15 trillion naira domestic borrowing program aimed at closing part of the 2025 budget deficit. The move comes amid renewed concerns about the country's rising debt profile and growing protest by unpaid contractors. Tijesu Adoye has more.
The Senate's Committee on Local and Foreign Debt says President Tinubu's 1.15 trillion naira borrowing request is necessary to bridge the shortfall in the 2025 budget. The committee explained that the increase created a 14.1 trillion naira deficit, with 12.95 trillion naira already approved for borrowing, leaving a gap of 1.15 trillion naira.
One, that the Senate do approve Mr. President's request to establish a 1 trillion naira, 150 billion naira borrowing program in the domestic debt market to close the unfunded deficit gap created by the increase in the budget size over and above the pre-approved revenue and borrowing plans.
Those in favor of these recommendations say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it.
In another development, the Senate waded into a growing controversy over the ward delineation exercise in Warri Federal Constituency, Delta State, following petitions from the Shekiri ethnic nationality alleging marginalization in the new boundaries created by INEC. The matter has been referred to a joint committee on judiciary and electoral matters for full investigation.
The coordinates that INEC used in the proposed units, words and structures that constitute the Warri Federal Constituency were such that substantial number of communities are not within the geographical confines of Delta States.
A group of people have taken INEC to court in respect of the outcome of the delineation. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I think that this matter should be rested and allow due process to continue in the courts.
The Senate is also moving to protect Nigeria's growing informal workforce, as it has passed a bill seeking to formalize and regulate domestic workers.
The Senate do consider and pass the Informal Sector Employment Regulation Bill 2025 as amended.
If passed, the legislation will align Nigeria's labor framework with international best practices and the ILO Domestic Workers Convention of 2011. TVC News, Abuja.